I'll kick us in and then
all good.
we'll jump in. So a special thank you to everyone who's watching or streaming this live as part of the Willy Show. This is episode 2 with sleep scientist Dave Stevens, who hit me up on Instagram with look, if you're looking for someone who's a medical professional to come on and have a chat about sleep.
I actually asked for anyone who was a medical professional.
I did. I was like, who in my followers is a medical professional? And you're like, I actually said doctors. And you're like, look, I'm not a doctor, but I'm a sleep scientist. And I was like, that'd be fucking perfect because, personally, I have the worst sleep ever. I have always, since I've been a kid, shit. And then I think a lot of guys, when they go through a bit of I'll say traumatic experience, have a lot of bad sleep. Only last night I got a message, I just put it on my Instagram story about a guy who was like, hey man, I couldn't sleep last night due to my PTSD and, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck. Well, how's the luck? And I was actually you wouldn't believe this. I hope you're all right, man, but you wouldn't believe who I've got fucking coming on tonight. Might be able to help you out.
It's good. No, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, anytime. So this is episode 2, episode 1, and everything's on Spotify and YouTube and wherever you're watching this, it'll probably be on there as well. So Dave has been particularly running a lot of, I want to say experiments, but I guess it's not an experiment. It's more of a long-term
So I've
study.
Previously been running experiments.
Yeah.
Actually, mine was very, very mad scientist-y experiments. So my background's respiratory.
Yeah.
And so obstructive sleep apnea, where your upper airway closes up during sleep. And so up until the beginning of this year, I was involved heavily in that research, which would involve wires in the tongue, catheters down into your esophagus with EMG wires to measure your diaphragm activity. And then obviously the sort of stock standard setup. And so that was good. We've made some quite stark findings that sort of do question a lot of our basic understanding of that. Now I am doing what we refer to as a cohort study, where we are going out to into people's homes and measuring their sleep. And this was done 10 years ago with Flinders and Adelaide University. And from that, we've made some quite good discoveries in terms of sleep duration, its effects on health, and cardiovascular health. And we're now doing a 10-year follow-up in the same people to, I guess, as we discussed beforehand, see changes in sleep and again, to give us even a better picture of sort of long-term how sleep and in particular sleep problems can affect.
And is there anything you're hoping to see out of this? Or what are you thinking you'll see as far as these people 10 years on? And sort of what age bracket are these particular people?
They're middle-aged. They were middle-aged. They were sort of 40s or 50s, and then a bit older. They're now the vast majority in their 60s. I think the oldest we've had is 92. And again, there's a range of things we're looking at. Changes in sleep pattern as they get older. So there is evidence to show as you get older, your sleep gets a bit worse quality. But what we'd really like to do is look to see exactly how that occurs, and that comes down to sort of stages of sleep and any disorders that occur with sleep, waking up too many times in the night, and you get all these other factors, particularly as you age. Prostate problems, and we have gentlemen who complain of getting up 10 times a night, which is obviously going to interfere with your sleep. But look, we've had some participants who have fallen into sort of ill health, and I think it would be interesting, and I know this sounds almost a bit callous, but looking at how those health issues can affect a person's sleep. And then obviously I've also got my own sort of interests in the more physiological side of things, because we do still collect those sort of measures. So admittedly, look, it is in the sort of the older population. There is talk that we start to aim younger, and we possibly start a new cohort in sort of mid-20s people, and anyway, that would be quite interesting to follow them for almost 50 years to see what changes occur. But chances are probably won't be around.
Yeah, I was going to say,
at the end of those
if you want to go 50 years, you might want to fucking start soon. I know I'd be stuffed. I could never make your job.
So, but yeah, no. So it's good, and I mean, I don't know. I just find sleep just really interesting. I mean, I myself had sleep concerns.
Yep.
Particularly when I had to get up very early to go to work, I'd sort of find that I had trouble going to sleep, and that's actually a very common phenomenon amongst people. And there's certainly been a lot of research, not with Flinders, but with the Appleton Institute. They're on Greenhill Road, looking at, like with fireys, a lot of them fear they're going to sleep through an alarm and miss a call out, and so just looking at the effects of that. And so, yeah, it's certainly a very interesting area, and it's certainly a growing area, because it's, in terms of medicine and science, sleep's only been sort of past 30, maybe 40 years that it's really been the focus of a lot of research.
Yeah.
And there's still stuff we don't know, to be blunt.
And what are those sort of things that you don't know? Or are they one of those things that you don't know that you don't know?
There's some of
Because
that.
every time you talk, or every time you listen to something about like astrophysics, it's like, we know we don't know things, but we don't even know what they are yet.
Yeah,
you're like, wait, what?
We don't quite know why we have REM sleep.
Yep. And for those listening, what is?
So you got different stages of sleep. You got 4 stages. Stage 1 is you sort of transition between wake and sleep, and there's almost dozing. We don't really care about stage 1 sleep unless you got a lot of it for whatever reason. You're not just falling into sleep. Stage 2, we've got very inventive names for a lot of our stages. Stage 2 is what makes up about half your sleep, and the importance of stage 2 in terms of learning and memory is becoming more apparent. In particular, you show to the naked eye, they all just look like squiggly lines, but there are these different type of squiggly line that we call a sleep spindle.
Yep.
That there's growing evidence to show that that's very important in memory and learning consolidation. And as well, they originate from an area of the brain called the basal ganglia and the striatum and around that area, which is actually very important for motor control. And so there's growing interest, and there is actually growing evidence, admittedly just basic in the moment, sort of just finger tapping, showing that healthier sleep spindles is important for a lot of the memory, a lot of the learning, a lot of the motor control.
And when you say like, so we're having a couple of beers here, so I'm trying to put bottle caps away.
It's a long weekend.
Yeah, so it's start of a long weekend. We can have some beers. But when you say motor control and things like that, is that like in the next 24 hours, or is that long term with the? So like, if I have a really bad sleep, if I don't sleep tonight, and will that affect my motor control tomorrow, or would it take me a year of having poor sleep before it really starts?
Both. But the caveat to that is, it's not just going to be, maybe a decrease in your sleep spindles. I mean, there's a range of reasons as to why your motor control the next day would be impaired. That would just be a decrease in neural signaling. They've shown as people just get sleepier and sleepier, that literally the signals in the brain just become slower to occur. They've shown that you just feel lethargic, and so you just almost don't want to move. So, I mean, it is a little bit to do with it acutely, but there are a range of other factors. And again, long term, it's a similar sort of situation. That's
sort of like you can eat poor one day and that doesn't really affect your health. But if you eat poor again and again and again, you end up,
it will affect it. So, so, I mean, that's actually an area of interest of mine. I mean, my background is actually sports science, and I've sort of dabbled in that motor control when I was doing sports science, and so I actually would like to sort of look into that, and potentially for rehabilitation purposes, but I guess also for athletic performance. I mean, if you can, does it lead to quicker contraction of the muscles to allow you to run faster? And again, this all goes back to this area that we don't quite know yet, and we just certainly need to look into it.
Yeah.
So going on, the next one, stage 3.
Stage 3, yeah.
Deep sleep. Depending who you talk to, they'll say there's a stage 4 as well, but we like to keep things simple. That's really important for actually making you feel rested in the morning.
Yep.
But also, there was a very good study showing that it actually helps basically clean the brain out.
Really?
Yeah, the lymph glands, or the glial lymph glands, basically they've shown a sort of increase movement of the fluids to clean the brains out, and
that's in stage 3.
That's in stage 3.
Jesus.
So that's again, that was published. Well, the research was conducted and published about 2014. As you can imagine, it's very difficult to sort of do these studies in humans, and so a lot of them are in animal studies at the moment.
And does that correlate fairly well with the human brain? As far as
it
sleep?
does. Yeah.
Does? Yeah.
It does. We are improving technology to help us do these types of studies in the human brain as well. But I mean, yeah, that's the other thing I should probably say, is that a lot of this sort of very experimental research has occurred in animal models, as we say. And sadly, there's sometimes studies we can't do in humans just because we need to look at the brain, and it's just impossible to get to it. And so the last one is then what I sort of spoke about with is REM sleep, and it's this, we call it paradoxical sleep because it's when the brain is actually very active.
Yeah.
It's when we dream.
Okay.
And so we know we dream. You seem to get a spike in blood pressure. You seem to almost, as I said, it's paradoxical because you get a bit of an increase in your what we call sympathetic nervous system activation, and the sympathetic nervous system is like your stress responses.
Yep.
I should actually backtrack and say with deep sleep, you have an innervation of your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's relaxation. And so you get these two sort of competing sleep stages. What's interesting, and almost from a respiratory perspective, is during REM sleep, your body becomes atonic. So it means all your muscles turn off, except for your eyes. And your eyes actually do move about, hence why it's called rapid eye movement sleep. And so from a respiratory perspective, we've shown that sleep apnea, which is the closure and basically the collapse of the upper airway, becomes a lot worse during REM sleep because of that very reason.
Your muscles
have turned off.
Why do your eyes move around?
I don't know
You don't
that.
know?
And I've looked it up myself. Admittedly, not, I haven't sort of gone on a way to look it up, but I don't think anyone quite understands. To be blunt, and I mean generally, we just don't quite understand why we go through this phase of sleep.
Yeah.
Particularly when it does stuff like make our upper airway collapse more regularly. And in fact, this cohort study I'm currently involved with, we've shown that blood pressure, like dangerous blood pressure surges that occur during sleep that could lead to heart attacks and strokes, it's mainly to do with REM obstructive sleep apnea, not to do with just general obstructive sleep apnea.
Yeah.
But when you deprive someone of REM sleep, for example, sleep deprivation, or if you're just sort of making them wake up a lot of times throughout the night.
All the army guys listening are like, you
tend to get what we refer to as REM rebound. So you get this huge amount of just REM sleep. So actually the classic one is people who drink a lot of alcohol. I won't go so far as say alcoholics, but people who drink a lot of alcohol. Alcohol does suppress REM sleep. Yep. So when you stop drinking it, one of the first things you'll experience is just a huge amount of REM sleep. But, again, we sort of don't know why. Why does something that shuts off all our muscles, causes us to choke in our sleep, causes blood pressure surges, why do we have this stage of sleep? And so I do know that research is going on into that one, and I guess watch this space. But and I guess the one other thing with REM sleep though is that for those that don't become atonic, that's known as REM behaviour disorder, and that's where you see, sadly, a lot of people thrash about and swing their arms, punch in the air.
I've been known to do a bit of that. Yeah.
So it's So anyway, that's back to sort of the original question about 10 minutes ago. That's one of the things that we generally don't know, and I'm sure there's researchers out there, but
and sort of what are the time frames between going from like your first stage and before you actually get into your REM sleep? Like, are we looking at like under an hour or a few hours, or
90 minutes is considered the normal time.
Yep. Before you just start that fourth stage.
Yeah, well, your fifth stage technically, because there's two stages. In the past, there's been 2 stages of slow wave sleep.
Yep.
But now they only condense it down to the 1 stage of slow wave sleep, but they still sort of refer to REM as the 5th stage. So, but that's more a nuance for the scorers. Look, it's about 90 minutes is considered a healthy range.
Yep.
And so what's interesting with that is if they've shown with people who have narcolepsy.
Yep.
So that's where you fall asleep like that.
Yeah.
You just boom straight away.
I know I don't have that. That's why I don't know the word.
But so the difference between narcolepsy and just being really sleepy is that narcoleptics go straight into REM sleep.
Oh, okay.
And so if we stick the wires on a person and then they'll just sort of fall asleep, as we're sitting here.
Yeah.
If they go straight into REM sleep, they're narcoleptic. If they go straight into stage 2, then they're just really sleepy.
Okay.
What's also interesting is that, and this is for sort of the mental health side of things, that they've shown people with depression, they go into REM sleep within the first half hour.
Okay, yeah. So you meaning, so imagine if you took a test of me now, and let's just say it took me 60 minutes to get to REM sleep, and then something happens and I go into depression, that would actually draw that back for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, by all accounts, now, whether the chicken or the egg, whether it's the event and then whether the depression leads to REM sleep onset occurring earlier, or whether or not REM onset occurring earlier then leads to depressive feelings.
Okay, yeah.
That we don't quite know yet.
Yeah. So there is a chance that this lack of REM sleep could actually really can be a massive contributing factor to depression.
Not the lack of REM sleep, but it's almost the sort of early onset.
The early onset,
of REM sleep, definitely. And so that's something else. I sort of, particularly with patients that complain of sort of these quite severe depression, they will look at sort of that stage of whether or not they're going to REM very early.
Yeah.
And likewise, I mean, not getting any REM is also quite unhealthy. I mean, that sort of is indicative of problems, be it sort of alcohol usage or sleep apneics tend to not get into not have a lot of REM sleep, because they're always waking up to regain control of their upper airway.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting area.
Very interesting.
I guess the difficulty with REM sleep is that, and I guess this goes back to the sleep stages, is that at the start of your night, the predominant stages of sleep are stage 2 and deep sleep. At the end of the night, the predominant stages are stage 2 and REM.
Yeah.
And so to sort of get a decent amount of REM, and this is actually ties back almost to societal problems with sort of, working and stuff, is that if you wake up early, if you set your alarm for 5 a.m, you are often depriving yourself of REM sleep, and waking up out of REM sleep. Yeah. You've probably woken up, you've probably had an alarm, you've woken up and you've just felt absolute crap.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Actually, before we get into it, I'm just going to lift your mic up a touch.
Sorry.
Will that lift on the stick, maybe? Well, let me,
that's all right.
For everyone listening, it's going to be like, what are you guys doing? There you go.
All right.
See if I can tighten that a little bit. There's a lighter stick. I think it's slipped over your thing. Beauty.
All right.
Sorry.
That's all right.
No, you're right. Everyone listening will be like, "What has just happened?" We're just moving microphones around. I could see it like over the past.
I'd noticed that as well. I was
like,
trying to bump it up, and it just wasn't moving.
You may even be able to tighten it a little bit. You might be in a better spot than me. There you go. That shouldn't.
Right.
Sorry, so we're talking about waking up out of REM sleep and just feeling.
So,
I'm sure pretty much everyone has had that.
Yeah.
You wake up at 3 a.m. and you're just like, oh.
It's not even it's usually alarm based. So if if you set an alarm, and if it occurs in the middle of REM sleep, you will just feel awful because your body's sort of paralyzed.
Yeah.
And then you're suddenly woken up and you just sort of don't quite know what's going on, particularly if you've been dreaming.
Yeah.
And if you've had quite a lucid dream, I mean, you sort of get people, they wake up and they're always confused as to where they are.
Yeah.
And so such is the scourge of alarms and sort of shift work and that's an entirely different area that's a big part of sleep medicine. So
yeah, a very, very interesting part too, because I know I was reading a thing a while back now. This is a Facebook article, so the credibility is through the roof. And I reckon it was probably Vice that published it.
Actually, Vice aren't too bad.
Sometimes though, sometimes it's like some of the science. You're like, you sure? Like,
I compared to say BuzzFeed or something.
God, don't even get me started. BuzzFeed.
Actually, with that said, I read something on the ABC today, which was just shock. I can't believe the ABC of all media outlets published it, because they're generally ABC and the Australian are generally very good with their.
But at least your tax money's going to the ABC.
Well, that's what makes me
so
concerned.
you helped write this.
That my bloody taxpayer money went to this awful just article. Anyway, so go on. So,
and they're actually talking about with a lot of problems with sleep now are based on phones and whatever, and poor sleep due to alarms and everything. And they're actually saying that if you went out like camping without your phone, without anything, for like 4 or 5 days, you would really like reset your sleep pattern, and you'd be so much better off for it.
Oh yeah, because that is well established.
And you may agree or disagree with this, but I guess as primitive animals, we were meant to sort of we have terrible night vision. Like humans are shit house.
Yeah.
We are meant to go to sleep when the sun's down and wake up when it's up.
And the other thing with that one is, and this is sort of getting a bit sort of into the
we can go anywhere.
Physiology side of things, is that to go to sleep, your body produces melatonin.
Yep.
The melatonin is from what we call the suprachiasmatic nucleus, somewhere in the brain. So this is where actually blue light is really sort of detrimental.
Yeah.
Is that when you're exposed to blue light and the blue light spectrum. So I think these things here are like smack bang, although they're white.
Yeah.
They're actually in the middle of the blue light spectrum.
Yep.
That suppresses melatonin release.
Yeah.
And so back in the hunter-gatherer days, when the sun went down, there was nothing suppressing that blue light, the suprachiasmatic nucleus and the melatonin. So you would start to develop melatonin and you would fall asleep. And then getting onto the phones and indeed, I mean, even just sort of street lights and just office lights is that a lot of the phones now, they've got that sort of blue light.
I have a blue light filter on mine.
Yeah, a lot of computers have them now. But the thing with LEDs in particular is they're very cost effective for lighting, but they are
incredibly
right in the middle of the blue light spectrum.
Yeah.
And so it's causing big problems for people getting to sleep. And that's, I guess, if anyone wants any recommendations, go around your house and you should almost have, like, your lights should be like a yellow hue to them.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, when we go to the red light spectrum, that helps secrete melatonin.
Does it?
So yes, yeah. So if people are sort of if people want a little bit of a suggestion to help with their nightly sleep habits, is firstly, don't look at your phone. Yeah. I mean, even forget the fact if you got a blue light filter on it, it's even still just that stimulation.
Of course, stimulation. You're taking Snapchats.
So, I mean, unless you're reading like just a news article or something.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just ditch the phone. But also, I mean, just check your lights and just sort of check, what type of, sort of shade it is and how bright it is, and try, if you can, to switch to a sort of a warm yellowish sort of light, and that'll help a lot. I can always remember I'm originally from Sydney, and we had a participant. Actually, no. Well, this is when I was sort of doing more of the clinical side, and it was a patient came in, mid-20s, complaining about having the worst sleep in the world, and we told him to go to bed, and they were then suddenly playing a movie. And this is his blackened room, and so we eventually went in and just ripped the computer off him and said, "Go to sleep." And he wakes up going, "Oh, this is the best sleep I ever had." I'm like, "You know shit, because you do it on a bloody computer, watching a movie." The one thing I can stress to people is, ditch the phones, ditch the technology, or at least don't be hard on yourself if you're on your phone and you maybe take a little bit extra to go to sleep. So
and you speak a bit about alcohol affecting that REM sleep, as we have some peers, and that's just that inability to get into REM sleep.
Yeah, it's the chemicals in the alcohol and the interaction that it. Funnily enough, it does actually help promote deep sleep.
Okay,
but I certainly would not recommend it at all as a sleep aid. In fact, pharmaceuticals in sleep is a very sort of contentious area at the moment. But it does suppress REM sleep. And again, I guess to show the sort of benefit of REM sleep, or why we sort of get it, is I'm sure there have been many people that have had a rather heavy night and woken up the next day feeling bloody awful, even if they haven't been drunk. They just sort of feel a bit out of it. So I think that goes back to that sort of importance of having all those different stages of sleep.
And one of the big ones I see a lot, actually, and it's becoming more and more popular due to it will be like marijuana will be legalized in Australia. Eventually, it will be. Like you look at America, it will happen. And I've actually seen a lot of studies. Well, I should say articles that. That also suppresses, like drugs in particular, but more commonly marijuana really suppresses REM sleep.
It does.
Where you can't even. The one I read said you can't even get into it.
No, that's correct. Look,
I'm not sure if you've looked into that, but yeah.
No, so I think the issue is, I mean, this is in science we've got to be very careful about illegality of certain things, and so. In fact, the only study I know of the effect of marijuana was actually in exercise. But I have read that THC does suppress a sort of REM sleep in animal models. I wouldn't be surprised if, given the other legality in the United States, studies into the effect of marijuana on sleep will soon be published. But I certainly know in Australia, it would be impossible for us to knowingly provide marijuana to someone.
I never think of that, so not even for a scientific purpose?
No, we can do studies if a person puts their hand up and says, "Yep, I do this, that, or another." We can then do observation studies on them, but we can't unless there's a very good reason. Now, there is actually, sort of this goes back to treatment for sort of illnesses, is that there is a growing field of, I know particularly in New South Wales, they are, I think they've all but legalised marijuana for, to assist with, say, cancer, sort of, I wouldn't say treatment, more recovery.
I'm unsure,
And so I think studies into that are now being allowed. But, we've unfortunately got to be very careful with sort of, we've got to have a very good justification, and that almost would have to be medicinal justification, and I don't think we can just go, we want to see the effects of smoking marijuana or not sleep. I'm sure we'd have no shortage of participants if we did that. The one study I know that's been done on marijuana was in it's quite funny. It was admittedly in humans. In rats. And they were injecting THC into rats, and then they were sort of getting them to run And it's what's interesting is THC binds to fat.
Okay.
And so you can almost store THC. You know, if you get this obese person, you can almost store THC. And so what they were finding with these rats...
Oh, sorry to cut you off, but is that why they can pick up marijuana in your system for like... So some drugs are like 10 hours. And as far as I know, some of that's like 8 or 9 weeks. Yeah.
That I don't know. Because I haven't read into it, but some THC binds to the fat, and then the rest of it's very quickly secreted. But then people who use THC don't tend to put on a lot of fat. Yeah. But the biochemistry behind it, I haven't. But what they were finding with these rats is when they have sort of THC bound to these fat, and when the rats ran, the fat was burnt and then was released back into the system. And so going for a run, these rats would get high again.
They're high halfway,
even though they hadn't had THC for a week.
Oh, Jesus.
So that's hilarious. I mean, I don't quite know what they were hoping to achieve from the study, but, they...
Good enough outcome either way.
So... actually, the other thing, this is sort of digressing to exercises, but humans are missing one enzyme to internally create alcohol from exercise.
Shit.
So and again, this is going back to like second year biochemistry, but I do distinctly recall that the same sort of breakdown of carbohydrates to create alcohol from wheat or honey or whatever. We go through it's like a 3-step process, although I'm sure that's very overly simplified. We miss the enzyme to allow us to do the third process, third step. So we do steps 1 and 2. It's just that third step that we don't possess. And
we could be rewarding ourselves with alcohol.
Going to the gym regularly, so it's probably a good thing that we don't.
Oh, it's a very good thing we don't.
It'd be very funny if we did, but...
Oh, yeah, it'd be hilarious. Those YouTube, like, gym compilations would be significantly better. Although I think I have hit the gym drunk a few times, so it'd be exactly like that.
I admit, if I had a few too many, I really want to run.
Really? You're one of them? Yeah. No, people get like that. That's what I want to see a scientist in on. He's like, why do people, some want to fight, some want to fuck, and some want to run? It's sort of in 3 categories.
I've been on these pub crawls, and it's like after about the 3rd pub, I just want to run to the 4th and then run to the 5th, and no idea why.
See, so I'm like the opposite of that. I'm like, I want to walk there and then dance when I'm there. I'm saving this energy. Now we'd be like, I don't have that 3rd enzyme, man. Like, I can't just get drunk doing nothing. Oh, shit.
Anyway, a bit of useless biology for
useless is interesting to me. You learn something new every day.
So,
and as far as, and we sort of dabbled on this, I guess, before, but as far as exercise performance, and sleep, because I know a lot of people are interested in, like, if they are getting enough to train. Like, I know... Yeah. And I'm meaning training, like, hard. And I guess this is somewhat put towards guys in the military due to every morning, 7:30 to 8:30, we do PT. Yeah. And it can be fairly intense. Yeah. But that also means, because the guys need to be there at 7:20, 7:25, a lot of the time they won't get 8 hours sleep. Yeah. Like, if you need to be up at... Well, I have to get up at 6 to get to work, which is fine by me. Yeah. That's just what it is. Lots of people bakers get up at 3, but the guys get up to work out. Yeah. And say on average 6.5 hours, 7 hours sleep a night. Is that really affecting your exercise performance, like long term, or
there's a few things you've touched on there. So
go over them all.
There's a sleep duration, and so we sort of anecdotally say 8 hours. But the thing is, it varies from person to person.
Yep.
Some, so we give sort of this broad sort of general recommendation of 6.5 to 8.5 hours.
Yeah. And is that for like people my age, or is that against the spectrum?
It is. Yeah. So it's sort of as like babies need to sleep almost 20 hours a day, and then as you sort of get older, you actually need to sleep less and less. Yeah. And I think a lot of that's down to neural development and just helping the brain develop. and I know there's a psychiatrist in Sydney, Nick Closier is his name, and he's actually a very strong advocate of it doesn't matter the duration per se, it's the quality of sleep.
Okay.
So you could have 8 hours of just stage 2,
Yep.
and you might get 5 minutes of stage 3 and REM,
Yeah.
or you get 5 hours, but you've got a decent amount of REM, decent amount of deep sleep, and decent amount of stage 2. And so he's sort of the opinion. Now I've made those figures up myself, but he's of the opinion that it's that quality, it's that making sure you get enough deep sleep, enough REM sleep, and so if that happens over 6.5 hours, or if that happens over 8.5 hours, that doesn't matter. It's more the fact you've got that.
Yeah. But how can one at home, like I know in a lab you might be able to judge the quality of my sleep.
Yeah.
But how can someone at home, is there any way they can sort of know if they've
if they've woken up and they feel pretty good?
Yeah, okay.
Basically, if you wake up and you feel terrible,
yeah,
more chances than not, something's gone wrong in your
and
sleep.
you may have come straight out of your REM
Could
sleep.
have come straight out of your REM sleep. You could have been not waking up but arousing.
Okay.
So I know. So going back into sleep apnea, I mean, there are people who they don't necessarily wake up per se, but their brain sort of switches on for a little bit, 1 or 2 seconds, to regain control of the upper airway muscles.
And does that basically reboot that whole step system?
No, it depends on the severity, and it depends on how. It doesn't reboot the step system more. It just doesn't allow you to get into these other stages.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the best analogy I heard. Actually, I'll digress. There's other reasons why people have periodic limb movement disorder. So your legs twitch, and people wake up because of that.
Yeah.
And look, there's just other things. I mean, if you live near a main road or something like that, a car drives by, or there's a lot of vehicles driving by, you may also be sort of aroused from sleep. So not waking, but just sort of your brain switches on, and so it not necessarily reboots that sort of stages of sleep, that step system, but more it doesn't allow you to get into the next stage.
Yeah.
And so the analogy I heard was like it's a car that's it's in second, and it's kind of just stalling, and you just never quite get into third, or you never quite get into fourth because it just can't get out of second. And that's sort of the analogy that has actually stuck with me, and I think it's a very good analogy of what a lot of these sleep problems can actually do. And so getting back onto the original question about athletic performance, and look, there have been numerous studies now that have shown that a poor night's sleep will acutely affect athletic performance. You just won't run as fast, you won't lift as much, and then again long term, if you just consistently got poor quality of sleep, it will affect your performance. Deep sleep, remember back into the stages of sleep, deep sleep also is when growth hormone is released. And that's why you get bodybuilders who actually, they sort of believe that having a snooze after a weight session will help develop their muscles, but it's a little bit more complicated than that.
That's just a bit of bro science, is it?
I think that's the technical term. I mean, look, it's not, it's not incorrect per se, but I certainly think that just a good diet and just a bit of a relaxation and just having a good sleep at night will be just as effective as having a half-hour sort of kip.
Well, actually, that jumps onto... Normally we do the questions at the end, but one actually did come through about what's your views on power naps, as far as like the 15 minutes pull over and have a nap. Is that effective, or is it just...
Yeah, look, it is effective.
It is?
Provided it's no longer than about 20 minutes.
Okay. Because is that when you duck into the next stage?
That's when you go to the next stage, and then you actually really start to cause problems. But if you have a little power nap for no more than 20 minutes, and so I've as I start to get a bit older, I'll go to and I'll have like a 15-minute nap, and I will literally set an alarm, and I'll wake up after 15 minutes. And there have been numerous studies which have shown that they can be very effective in just helping just day-to-day performance and just cognitive performance, and physical performance, I probably wouldn't suggest, having a power nap immediately prior to something important.
Yep.
So, if you're going to run a 100-meter race or an important meeting, probably have your little power nap maybe 2 hours beforehand.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it straight away then try and perform. But no, they are there's the unequivocal science to show that they are quite good and they're quite beneficial for you.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah,
No,
I'm not a shit napper. I know there's a meme floating around that I send occasionally that's like, when you wake up from a nap and you're like, what planet am I on? And I guess that's when you've gone
that's
too
when you've
long.
gone too far.
You've gone 45, half an hour, and you're like, oh my god.
And the problem with that is you then mess up the your normal circadian rhythm. That's like for those interested, circadian rhythm is what sort of dictates when we go to sleep. I mean, you're sort of awake for 18. Sorry,
No, you're right.
you're awake for 18 hours, and sort of your circadian rhythms occur to such a stage that you feel like going to bed.
Yeah.
And so having longer naps, there's 2-3 hours, can really affect your sleep, and that's why for shift workers, if they've worked overnight, the recommendation. I should be careful what I say here. If you've worked overnight and then you're not working the following night, then what the recommendation is only have a 2 or 3 hour sleep.
Yeah.
When you get home, and then stay up until it's bedtime, and then go to sleep normally.
Well, that's what I try and do, and I think a lot of people do this with long flights.
Oh,
So if I had a flight, so what I would do, say, and you might be like, you're an idiot, is if I had a flight at 6 a.m. tomorrow to fly for 13 hours, but I land somewhere and it's the morning again, you stay up that whole day to then try and get back into a normal nightly rhythm. I know the time difference. If we just forget the time difference for a thing, but I know there's a few times, say, and I've struggled with sleep a lot. So I'm getting up at 6 to go to work, and it's 3 in the morning. I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to get up, and I'm just going to go the 36 hours without sleep. Like,
again, I mean,
might be a good or bad thing. Yeah,
there's multiple sort of. I mean, jet lag is just it's a nasty beast. Because it throws out. So you got your circadian rhythms, but then you also have your sleep homeostasis.
Okay.
And there comes a stage where if you deprive yourself of sleep, you will fall asleep. And this is the danger of people behind the wheel.
And how long would that take? You think
it ranges from person to person.
Yeah, and I guess some of your physical activity and everything as well.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, after 24 hours, there is a very strong chance that you will just slip off to sleep.
Yeah, because there was a thing a while back that was saying, and don't quote me on the numbers here,
24 hours is the same as 0.05 alcohol.
Well, I heard 16 hours was the same as 0.05. And then they were going more as, well, they were going like once you're at like 36 hours, you were driving the same as if you were pissed. Like you're 0.15.
Yeah.
And I guess that's something you can't really test for, can you?
Not yet, but we're trying to.
You reckon that one day we could roadside test?
That is literally exactly what we're trying to develop.
Bullshit.
No joke.
We've opened a can of worms.
So, but I'm not allowed to talk about it too much.
That's all right. Yes, like guys dressed in all black swinging through the windows and
no,
get out.
It's more the scary IP lawyers that want to put IP protection on it and then try and sell it for $1 billion or something. But no, look, I certainly know, and actually the CRC, so it's called the CRC for Alertness, Safety and Productivity.
Yep.
They've got a website, and it does list vaguely what we do. But that is certainly something that we are very interested and we are trying to develop.
And is that pushed from like road safety? Or
yeah, it is. Yeah. It is sort of
I guess like pilots and everything too. Like
there are a lot of industries that would need. I mean, air traffic controllers.
Everything. Yeah. Shit. Yeah. I've always been, and I've read a study once. We'll say with air traffic controllers and pilots of people being, why do they get paid so much? Like pilots basically, like these days, they basically fly themselves, and it's like yes, but the more money you earn, there's a correlation between your stress in your life and being financially stable. And they're like, if we can make them financially stable, there's less chance they're going to be stressing at night and not getting a good night's sleep.
That's true.
And whatever. So the pilot, yes, pilots get in the cockpit drunk and with no sleep. It happens. But the higher we pay them, it seems like that happens less. It's a weird thing,
no, it is a good point you raise. Is that you sort of try and mitigate these risks that will affect performance.
Imagine if one day you had to have, your breathalyzer interlock on your car. You have to get in, it like looks at your eyes, and it's like you can't drive, you're too tired.
I mean, there's definitely technology available.
Available or emerging? Or
No, available.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So
And
a lot
how
of
does that take it?
mining industries use it a lot now to make sure that
in Australia functioning?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an Australian company.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know if I can commercially say, but Optalerts is the Australian company based in Melbourne. It's actually quite interesting technology. So what it does is when you're tired, you blink longer.
Yep.
And so it's this little device which actually literally measures. It's called a near-infrared spectroscopy, and that actually can measure like the blood volume and blood flow in a certain tissue. And so this device, when you're blinking longer, the top eyelid is obviously going to be down longer.
Yeah.
So it can detect more blood flow and more blood volume, and thus can detect that because you have more blood volume, you must be blinking slower, therefore you are more tired.
Jesus.
And as a simple, that's a simplistic explanation of how that works. But so this is already sort of available. And,
I'm honestly very surprised that's available, and that it's not a roadside RBT thing.
I can't say too much.
Yeah, I know you can't say too much, but I will say that I'm honestly surprised it's not, and that
you need to.
I'd back it if they were like, look, there's good evidence in this, because I know, and I'm not going to incriminate myself here, but I've almost had, and they talk about it on the telly with like your mind just for like a second.
Oh, microsleep,
You have a microsleep, and you're 100 metres down the road. I remember having that driving from Melbourne to Adelaide once. What's that, an 8 or 9 hour drive, maybe like 10 hours actually. And it was exactly, so the ad, what they've done in the ad in like, Adobe After Effects is just pause the video and then move it. And it was literally like that. I'd be driving a steering wheel, and next thing, it's like a next frame in a video down. I'm like, oh my God. And that is dangerous.
Yeah.
Like I know I pulled over like, nah.
Sadly, I mean, we say, truckers who need to make the next destination at a certain time. Sadly, they will resort to either, a lot of sort of stimulant drug usage. Yeah. And they will not sleep for 36 hours. Yeah. And
I've been there.
I'm not going to get drawn into, the work conditions. Yeah. But I certainly think it's something that needs to be examined for overall
100%.
Safety.
That's why pay by kilometre or pay by whatever is just not good enough for trucks.
Exactly.
Because of course you're going to do it. Like you've got a time frame. Guys are going to do it. You're getting paid for that distance. It's just I won't bring you into it, but like my opinion is just freaking stupid. Like there's a reason things go wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's you're driving a 50, 60 ton vehicle on the road. Fuck off.
At 100 and something kilometres an hour.
On cruise control.
Yeah.
Like you fall asleep, you plan into something 100, 110.
So,
and I've seen guys sleep in some weird situations in the army. One of the big ones for us, because, and you'll probably back this up after, but the first thing of really, if we go outfield, the first thing, if you were to just deprive of anything, water's the first one that will really get you. Food, not really, and then sleep. Yeah. Now, in defence, they cannot deprive you of water. It'll kill you. So they just 100% water's always available. Yeah. But a lot of time we're deprived of sleep on an exercise to really, show what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it just makes the exercise fucking hard. And I know plenty of times anyone who's ever done what's called SILES, which is like a corporal's course, guys will fall asleep standing up digging a hole. So we literally so the whole thing is like, yep, there's an enemy position moving towards you. You need to dig these pits down because there's guys getting extracted behind you, medical extraction. And I've witnessed myself and plenty of dudes digging a hole with a shovel and just fall asleep and just on the ground. And it's an incredible thing when you're in that amount of tiredness. It's an incredible thing.
And you can just, you just fall. I mean, let's go back to air travel. I mean, generally speaking, so there's what stops you from sort of falling into a deep sleep sitting up is receptors in the neck.
Yeah.
And so when your head, that's why you quite comically see their head flops forward and they sort of wake up.
Sucking the invisible dick.
I've never heard that one before.
You haven't heard that?
actually.
Yeah,
No.
I remember it's a pretty common thing. It's like if you're falling asleep in a lesson, it's like, oi, mate, stop sucking the invisible
I've
dick.
never
You're
heard
like,
that
"Ugh."
one before. That's a great one,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, there comes a stage where you just become so tired that those receptors don't work anymore.
You're just out of it. Oh my God.
And then it goes back to people driving behind a wheel,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
falling asleep,
Yeah.
and but I mean, on planes as well. Planes are different because they're they're trying to affect lighting and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised that occurs.
No, I've been there. I've even had, and maybe I'm not sure if this is a thing that you could even explain. Literally hallucinate from lack of sleep.
Oh no, you do. Yeah.
So I remember back in my training days of the army. Now we all run double night vision goggles, but at training you normally run single, like a monocle. Standing in a pit, I hadn't slept for 3 or 4 days at this point. Ridiculous. The whole thing is this is your culminating activity for to be a rifleman. So it's fucking hard. And through one eye, I could see a figure moving through the trees in front of me. The other one, nothing. It was not there. And me's like the guy next to me on the guard. I'm like, can you see that? Like, nah, man. And it's pretty common between diggers to be like, yeah, man. I was like full hallucination. I was seeing things. Yeah. And I know in my own eyes, like, I know nothing was there, but I saw that. Yeah. And that is that common?
That is common. Yeah.
But this was like a proper walking figure. Like you would swear you saw like Bigfoot.
So a lot of that is just the brain. They've shown as you become more and more sleep deprived that in fact parts of the brain, certain areas of the brain will actually shut down and go to sleep. Yeah. And so one part of your brain's awake, another part's asleep. Okay. And they've actually shown dolphins and sharks. Literally half their brain will sleep and half their brain will remain awake, and they alternate between the two hemispheres. And so chances are, you've probably actually been asleep, or dare I say, no, I mean, without having seen any sort of evidence, you probably were almost dreaming or something. There was probably a part of your brain, that was dreaming, but then another part of your brain's awake, and that's what's caused that. And I mean, I know, I was speaking with another just a participant in a research study who said that one day he had been awake for 5 days, had some mental health issues, but he could swear that there was orchestral music around. Like when he's sort of on his 5th day, there was orchestral music, and he could hear it sort of the violins and the clarinets and stuff. Yeah,
there's a study. I'm not sure what the credibility on this is, because again, it's not one of those BuzzFeed sort of articles. But on, I think it was like Russian human testing on sleep back in like World War II, where they did put like almost a drug in a chamber with these people in it to keep them awake, and they literally just went crazy. What would you see the time frame of, like, when will non-sleeping kill you? Is there a time, like, or would your body just go to sleep?
It depends.
Like, would you almost just pass out?
You'd pass out.
Yeah.
And then if you force something, I mean, ultimately it would kill you. I mean, look, on that, one of the very first studies ever conducted in sleep was actually in rats, looking at the effect of, and they just kept them awake. Would like prod them awake, shock them awake. Yeah. Most of them died of sepsis. Okay. So they died from infections. Yeah.
Because I guess your body's fighting them when you're asleep. So is that the reason? Or?
There is immune suppression. Yeah. When you have sleep disorders, you get immune suppression, and then you get systemic inflammation. Yep. And then ultimately, so they showed with these rats that they just died of infections, and in terms of in human, I would say, I mean, the most you could do is probably 5 days awake before it starts to become critically like life endangering. Yeah. And I mean, that's a problem with sort of crystal meth and stuff like that. These people don't sleep for 4 or 5 days on end. And it causes huge mental health problems. I mean, that's sort of, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. And,
that's crazy.
And look, I mean, if anyone listening does have sleep problems, go and chat to your GP. Don't go on to medications. Don't go on to sort of any of the sleep medications because they don't actually treat the problems.
Yep.
They just mask the problems.
Yeah.
It's a Band-Aid solution.
Actually, on that, because I struggled a lot on my diagnosis.
Yep.
I struggled a lot with mental health issues and falling asleep, which I think is incredibly common.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably one of the first things you notice is I guess with mental health you notice sort of poor eating, probably poor personal hygiene, and I put almost hygiene as sleep hygiene.
Funny you mentioned there's literally a thing called sleep hygiene.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah.
Bloody, look at me. They're killing it. I'm a couple of beers deep and I'm a scientist.
Very profound, yeah.
Yeah, bloody oath. But I was on a drug, temazepam.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a pretty common one.
Yep.
Now, the way the GP put it to me, it was like, this is to get you, this is not to put you to sleep, and this is not a solution. This is to try and get you in a rhythm to sleep so you can actually fall asleep at 10 o'clock every night. And then I've actually recently gone on to melatonin.
See, melatonin...
Which is like, that's naturally in the body.
Yep.
It's not like temazepam will put you to sleep. It'll more almost trigger in your body, righto, it's time to start getting
and this
ready.
goes back to what I was talking about with the light and the suppression of the melatonin. Look, I mean, if you're going to go on to a pharmaceutical, melatonin is the one to go on to. The important thing, though, is you've got to do it at the same time every night.
Yeah.
To make it effective, it has to be. You got to give it a few days, possibly even a few weeks. But for it to be effective, you've got to do it at the same time. So if you take it at 9:30, you always take it at 9:30. Yeah. Or whatever the instructions say. Because I know there's different types of melatonin. There's fast release, slow release melatonin. And so, I don't necessarily have an issue with melatonin per se. Yeah. Well, I think is that over the counter or is it? It can be over the counter. Yeah. You can also get prescribed ones, depending on the type. Because the fast acting melatonin will actually send you to sleep pretty quickly. Yeah. So that becomes just a bit of an issue if you're driving. Yep. But then, I mean, getting back onto the sleep hygiene, I mean, that then comes into stuff like don't look at your computer right before you go to bed. Yeah. Don't. Going for exercise, going for a run is a bit of a contentious issue. Because I've always worked off the don't run after 7:30 at night. Yeah. There's a few things with going for an exercise, going for a run late at night. You got core body temperature, so your core body temperature increases. And for us to go to sleep, one of the things we notice is that the core body temperature reduces. Okay. And so but with that said, there's actually studies out of Western Australia that have shown that the core body temperature increases due to exercise don't affect sleep. Okay. So, and there's been other... But with the stimulation from the exercise? Well, this is sort of the next thing. It's sort of this arousal, you're sort of hyped up and... whether that keeps you awake. And I certainly know, just social sort of sport I've played late at night, like social basketball and stuff, I've actually struggled to get to sleep. Yeah. And I don't care about the results, so I can't say it's because we lost the game. Yeah. And by all accounts, it's not because I was hot and sweaty, so it's probably just because I've just been overstimulated. Yeah. So do they say that... sorry, I zoned out for a sec. That the sort of thermal heat didn't affect sleep? No, it didn't. See, that's surprising to me because I was surprised too. Because I know I've done like big leg sessions, and you can physically feel the heat in your legs. Like you've done 10 sets of squats and you can feel the heat. Yeah. And that has kept me awake at night. Okay. Because I've been like, this is hot. Yeah, okay. Because I've felt hotter. Okay. And that may just be stimuli more. But I know if I overwork as well, that keeps me up. Yeah. But I mean over physically work, but that probably is a couple of things as far as stimuli as well. Yeah. Okay. As I said, it was studies from group at the University of Western Australia that did that. I think it was in AFL players actually. Yeah. Okay. And they showed it didn't really, at least on average, it's probably one or two that did.
It may be too, because these results you can always assume are skewed some way too. You can always skew results to get what you want.
No,
you can't.
No,
because I was more thinking like, say an NFL player is so like used to working out.
Yeah,
that
okay.
they might be able to
they
work. Yeah, that's more what I mean. Is they have been working out for 15 years every single day of their life. That
So
it's not a shock. It's not a shock to the body. Yeah, they're used to that stimuli coming off it.
But with that said, look, we our research group, we did some studies with the Adelaide Crows.
Yep.
Back in 2013, so before I arrived, and there was they still have sleep complaints, particularly after playing a game.
Yeah,
they still, like, a lot of the players reported struggling to fall asleep after a game, and so even then, it's still it can still affect you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you got to think the amount of factors that go into an AFL player playing a game. It'd be everything from even the lights on the ground are all probably.
Well, that's what I've got a big. I'd like to actually do that.
Yeah,
literally go around and measure how much blue light there is in a game. Because
it'd surely be massive. Those lights would be a few thousand lumens each. Like,
and they're all LEDs.
They're all
and
it's for filming. So like, these are very white light. It makes it easier so the white balance on a camera can actually work it out.
So that's stuff I don't know about. So that's interesting to know.
So that's why these are white. So that's why the actual lamp in here is off. That is a more warm light.
Yeah, okay.
And that's off because these are fairly simple cameras compared to expensive ones. But the whiter the light, the easier the colour spectrum coming back into the camera is.
Okay.
It doesn't skew it at all. So like an AFL game, at the end of the day, the only reason that exists is to watch. And really now it's been to watch on telly.
Yeah.
You know, you have 40,000 at the stadium, but you've got 4 million on TV.
Exactly. Easy,
They're not going to put lights that's better for the players. Like, at the end of the day, they're going to be, what do the film crew need?
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things. As far as we're going over pharmaceuticals, I've had a guy comment, Zopiclone.
Zopiclone, yes.
Is that the same as temazepam? As sort of a...
No, I do believe it's in a different class as temazepam. All right, the one thing I know with Zopiclone is it's impossible to overdose on.
Okay, that's one good thing. Don't tell him that.
And look, I was involved in the study back in Sydney where we provided Zopiclone to participants who had what we call a low arousal threshold.
Okay.
So, with obstructive sleep apnea, and chances are he's probably not interested in what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's certain what we call phenotypes, so there's sort of causative reasons as to why a person's upper airway collapses, and actually one of them is because a person wakes up too easily.
Yep. And
when you wake up too easily, you take a massive, big breath, what we call an arousal breath, and it actually throws off the balance of particularly carbon dioxide into the blood. Now, digressing a little bit, what drives you to breathe is carbon dioxide.
Yep.
If you have too much carbon dioxide, you'll start to breathe quicker. If you have not enough carbon dioxide, you'll sort of actually slow your breathing down. That's why when you take a big breath, go into water, come up, you'll take a massive breath in again.
Yeah.
So with this low arousal threshold in sleep apnea, the idea was if we could sort of dampen this arousal, so we could make it harder for them to wake up.
Yeah.
Possibly we could treat, in people who have this, what we call the phenotype, we could treat this form of sleep apnea. It did appear to reduce AHI, but then, I don't think it did. I think it was a bit disappointing, to be honest. So look, that's my experience, personal experience with Zopiclone. That's why I was a bit, got a bit nostalgic.
That's fine.
With it. Again, it falls back into it's a sedative, and it really, if you're using it to help you get to sleep, unfortunately, it's just masking the problems.
Yeah.
And the way to think of sleep, and I might go on a bit of diatribe. And I might sound a bit almost hippie.
Go for it.
it's part of sort of the 4 important factors of health. So you've got good sleep, good mental health, good exercise, good diet, and they're almost sort of concentric circles.
Yeah.
You could have the best sleep in the world, but if you're eating crap, not exercising, and you're just stressed out of your brain, who cares if you have good sleep?
Yeah.
Likewise, you could try to eat healthily. You could go for, lots of exercise. You could meditate, but then if your sleep is crap, then you're gonna have you're still not going to be healthy. And I think it's important if you do have poor sleep, it is important to you almost got to be honest with yourself as to why.
Yeah.
Is there something happening in your life? Is there a stress, for example, illness, or is there a family problems, or you got to be honest, is your diet crap?
Yeah.
Coming from the person who's just had onto the 3rd beer.
No, it's not that bad. We're in Adelaide and it's almost 8 o'clock. I am sure there are plenty of people more than 3 beers deep right now. If anything, we're probably the most sober people in Adelaide. We're in the top 1%. It's us and all the cops on Hindley Street who are the sober ones.
But look, I think if you're getting problems to falling asleep, you've almost got to be a bit honest with yourself as to why. Certainly go talk to your GP. For the person who did message in about Zopiclone, they're probably going to be a bit angry with me, but I would try to almost get yourself off the Zopiclone, and doing that is by being honest with yourself.
Well, I know this certain individual, I won't say his name, but he is a big one for actually coming off pharmaceuticals. He's someone who's dealt a lot with PTSD from
fair
defense.
enough. And that's the thing, and that's why I am a bit mindful of sort of what I say. Is I'm not like
but I agree, because I know he personally is a big one for getting off antidepressant drugs. And I know he would definitely take on board that. Getting off it. I think for some.
I guess for people listening is I'm not going to entirely demonise sedatives. There are instances where they are needed. There is a thing called cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yep.
And so much so, there are in fact online programs which are shown to be as effective as psychology and psychologists produce ones. I'm not going to... You literally type in CBTI, cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, and there should be a range of online providers, and that is actually very effective. And it's if people are really concerned, they should, and it would be good to rule out any other sleep problems. Particularly for PTSD. I do know with PTSD is that there's actually a fair amount of sleep apnea as well in it.
Okay.
And some of them actually can go into sleepwalking, unfortunately. They sort of go into what we call parasomnias, which I admit I think a lot of us don't quite understand.
Okay.
But yeah, CBTI, online CBTI is as effective as a psychologist led cognitive behavioural therapy, and it will go into the steps of helping you sort of deal, like identifying problems, and then sort of strategies to address it. So, for example, there's almost a form of insomnia where people are just literally going to bed too early.
Yep.
So they're not actually tired, but they're going to bed, and it almost comes back to orthosomnia, which is where people become so worried about their sleep they almost keep themselves awake.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah,
I know that. I think
so
everyone does
with
it.
That one, don't go hard on yourself. Look, I mean, like everything, there are going to be nights you can have a crap night of sleep.
Yeah, it happens.
And don't beat yourself up, and in particular, don't look at your Fitbit or your bloody Garmin and go, oh no, I've got this poor sleep, because I mean, that in itself is an entirely different
kettle of fish. Yeah,
I mean, they're not bad per se, but certainly don't judge yourself off them.
Yeah.
Well, now I forgot what I was about to talk about.
Oh, sorry.
This alcohol, the Zopiclone, and so back onto sort of the orthosomnia, and so there is actually, for some people, actually what we call sleep restriction therapy works.
Yeah.
Where, you stay up and you actually only give yourself 5 hours to sleep. But because you're staying up later, and this goes back to the sleep homeostasis, because you're more tired, your drive to sleep is a lot stronger, and so you will actually go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then it goes then back to what I was talking about with the sleep quality. You'll probably then have all these different stages of sleep.
Yeah.
As opposed to just lying in bed wide awake, worrying about not sleeping.
What are your thoughts on? Because I know I'm a big one for that. Like, self-confessed shit sleeper that I lie in bed worrying about stupid shit. Really, most of the time it's stupid shit. A lot of the time, and a lot of tips I get is get up and sort of restart. Like, get up, have a shower, have a drink. Like,
I wouldn't even necessarily say have a shower, but just
almost like wake yourself back up and almost is that a good advice, or is it sort of a wives' tale sort of?
No, look, I have heard that said before.
Yeah.
If you are lying in bed and it's just you're not feeling tired and your brain's going a million miles, just get up. I wouldn't turn the TV on. I wouldn't go on your phone.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't even have a shower, but I don't know, grab a book.
Yeah.
And just read a book. A good one actually said to me by a psychologist was, if you got sort of thoughts going through your head, actually just write them down. Because in a way, it gets it out of your head.
That helps me a shitload. A diary beside my bed, and just write shit down.
Yeah, just write it down, and then that way, all those thoughts are on a sheet of paper, so you can deal with them in the morning.
Yeah.
And then go read a book. Just a dumb, I don't know, Tom Riley book or something like that. Something that's not overly stimulating.
Yeah. It's not Jordan Peterson. It's not. It's not too stimulating.
I don't know. Maybe. Well, about to say don't read. What is it? Tolstoy's or whatever. Maybe reading something very heavy. Would send you to sleep. So, but no, look, that's actually not bad advice.
Yeah. And is there something to in really having your bedroom for sleep? I know I've watched a few things where it's like, we'll discredit sex because that's just going to happen anyway. But people are like, don't eat in bed, don't watch TV in bed, because you'll tell your mind that if you just go to sleep when you go to bed, your mind associates this room with this is where I go to sleep. Is there anything in that?
Don't think there is as much evidence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not bad advice.
Yeah.
It's sort of that. It gets back to this sort of wholesome sort of inner sanctuary. It's your bedroom, and it's for sleep, and so no. As I said, no real evidence for it, but again, I would strongly recommend it anyway.
Yeah, and as far as like going to bed and trying to give yourself the best chance and opportunity, I guess, to sleep through the night, what would your tips be for that? Like, I know that's not an easy question, but
as I said, well, acknowledge any bad behaviours you may have.
Yep.
And then sort of, don't be hard on yourself, but try and address them. Then the stock standard stuff, like, have your light a nice hue colour, have your technology off. Look, thermal regulation is very important. That's why in summer we all sleep like crap. You get these 40-degree days because your body can't cool itself. But try and create an environment where you can sort of cool yourself, but you're not freezing.
Yep.
That was the article that annoyed me in the ABC today, was people saying that we shouldn't sleep with blankets in winter because we stop ourselves from cooling, and like, no, we just created a little micro thermal environment for us. Anyway, as I said, I was really quite angry with that article. I was angry with who they cited as a source. But anyway, I'm not going to.
It was me. It was Willy. He was talking shit.
No, I think you'd have a bit more idea than this person. But and so look, and try and, I guess, just practice it. Try and clear your mind. And so if that means maybe even doing sort of just 5 minutes of just a bit of mindfulness, maybe sitting up and having a read. That's not such a bad thing. But actually sit up, partially because it's actually good for your posture, and partially because you're not sort of lying down. Yep. And I guess then just, turn the lights out and just, I guess, be a bit easy on yourself. And if it's taking you a little bit longer, if you're feeling tired, it's taking you a little bit longer, don't worry about it. And then you should. But if the problems are persisting, definitely go actually seek some help.
Like professional, yeah.
Yeah, CGP. I would turn down any sort of sleep medication, maybe except for melatonin. But as I said, there's online programs. If you have sort of insomnia-like programs, if you have a bed partner that says you're snoring the house down and you're choking yourself in the sleep, it's probably good indicator you've got sort of sleep apnea type problems. And similarly, if you kick about, thrash about, then again go and seek some help for that as well.
Yeah. And what's your thought on like sleeping with a partner? Because I know it's becoming almost a trend to almost have two beds.
Two beds, yeah.
Is that more like a thermal regulation thing?
No, I think it's a bit of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly know with my wife, she's in the middle of summer, she'll sleep with 3 doonas.
If you've ever been in a shower with a girl, you know that it's...
They want it really bloody hot.
There's a photo on Facebook of like a dude there as just a skeleton, and the chick like, it's a bit cold. But
that's true.
Yeah.
And look, pets becomes an entirely different issue.
Pets on the bed.
Oh yeah, they have actually. There has been studies showing that sleeping with animals affects your sleep quite severely.
Yeah.
We have a very large. We adopted her at 16 years old, and she was about 16 kilos when we adopted her. The cat.
Yeah. Cat.
A cat. Yeah, she's a big
16 kilogram cat.
She's now not quite 16.
Jesus, my dog is not that big.
She was very well loved by her previous owner. But yeah, it does affect, having pets and partners can adversely affect your sleep.
Yeah.
And so I'm certainly not going to tell everyone to go off and, get separate beds, but I'm certainly not going to judge people who do that.
Yeah.
I certainly know that, if my wife's had to be up really early in the morning, I often will actually just sleep, just so I don't disturb her. And in a way, she doesn't disturb me when she wakes up.
Yeah.
So, I think that's, if that's what's needed to get a good night's sleep, then I think go for it.
Yeah, I guess that's back to your point of like honesty with yourself. Like,
well, that's true, yeah.
Because you spend, a good, third or more of your life sleeping.
About that, yeah.
That's a pretty fucking important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I know personally some of the best night's sleep I've ever had outfield, like in the army, on the ground, we dig what we call shell scrapes, which is like almost like a little coffin, like a foot deep.
Yeah.
And some of the best night's sleep of my life. Because I think I've been that tired and I've just literally, those sleep where it feels like you blink.
Yeah.
And you're awake again.
That actually comes back to your sleep homeostasis.
Yeah.
Is when you become so tired that, you close your eyes. And there's a test called the Karolinska Drowsiness Test where we get you to stare at a dot on the wall, 2.5 minutes eyes open, 2.5 minutes eyes closed. And we've seen in patients we've deprived of sleep, like that, they will be asleep as soon as we tell them to close their eyes.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And that's sort of the disturbing thing with these people driving after 24 hours of no sleep.
Massively.
So, yeah.
I know where was that for a catch? I dropped my beer and caught it between my calves. As being a thick boy, that helped out right then. Now I'm going to open up maybe a kettle of fish, or it might even be a 5-second conversation of we don't know, or hours of dreaming. Why do we dream? Like, I know that's a very open question, but almost.
I'll be blunt. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not something I've looked into. I just passing sort of reading that. It's sometimes associated with memory consolidation.
Okay.
I've also read that it helps us deal with sort of issues, but that's and look, I know people with PTSD do dream a lot.
Yep.
They have a lot of sort of
that's
nightmares.
where I'm going with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, I think that may come back to the effect that it sort of helps the brain deal with a sort of situation. But look, I'll probably disappoint a lot of the listeners. I personally don't know.
No, that's fine.
I'm not going to pretend I know.
No, you're better off doing that than pretending.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do, and I get myself in shit all the time.
Nothing annoys me more than these people who pretend that they know what they're talking about and they really don't. And so look, I can certainly try and find. So I don't know of anyone in Australia, who does a lot of dream research. I know in Europe there is, but I mean I do know it's a very sort of negative thing that a lot of people with PTSD experience.
Yeah, because I don't have PTSD myself, but I know I was having months of these dreams where I was lost. I was lost in the dream, like I couldn't find my way.
Yeah.
In something simple, and then I sort of Googled it, and then a lot of these dreams have really common trends of people not having the same dream, of course, but having the same situation happen to them. And it's almost ask these like questions of like, oh, have you been experiencing this, and this, and like yes, and it's like this is almost how your brain deals with these situations in its sort of unconscious state. Is it's like, well, it has this to deal with this because if you're having a friendship relationship breakdown of what was happening at the time, you do feel like I don't know where my fucking life's going. It makes it almost like an almost an artistic impression of this is how your brain puts it together of this, and that's for me, it literally like all the boxes are ticking. Like, holy shit! Like, are you having this happen? Like, yes, this.
Well,
this,
I
this,
remember.
this.
I mean, it's still a very people don't quite know, and I remember a researcher saying that when they were younger, they were having dreams about snakes.
Yeah,
and she said she was deathly scared of snakes.
Yeah,
hated them. So when she was a little girl, she was having dreams about snakes, and she would always sort of have these almost what she called nightmares. Yeah, but then. And so she always put it down to just she was just afraid of snakes. But then you got these sort of psychologists, these sort of psychosexual psychologists who say that in fact dreaming about snakes is you dreaming about penises, and that all she was, and so she was herself was very confused about what these dreams were meaning because she was adamant she was having nightmares and she was afraid of snakes and hated them, but apparently she was just longing for penises or something, and so. And so I mean, maybe it's age related. Maybe as a child, they are genuine fears, and maybe as an adult, there might be desires or something. So it's an incredible thing, isn't it? Your brain is fucking powerful. It is very powerful, and we don't understand a lot of it. Yeah, but are we making ground on it? Like we are making ground. Yes, and it's part of so. You've spoken a bit about this 10-year block of research you're doing, and if people have forgotten by this point, you've basically studied people's sleep 10 years ago for multiple factors, and we'll go over these, and then you're restudying. Is it this year? This year, and then you're restudying this year. So what are those sort of? We may have gone over it slightly, but the factors you're actually looking at, and almost what are you hoping to determine out of this? So obviously looking at sleep. Yeah. But over the past 10 years, we've sent them questionnaires asking about their health. Any cardiac problems, metabolic problems, cancers, mental health problems. And so what we'd like to do is look to see whether we can pinpoint whether there's something in sleep that'll help us identify those potentially at risk of a certain type of illness or, certain... Or whether or not sleep indeed is effective affects it, and so because the problem, as I said, sleep research is relatively young. Yeah, 30, 40 years you said, wasn't it? But about that, again, it was mainly due to the technology that we had available. But and so we still really don't know a lot. There's a lot of associations, and correlations, but as the old expression goes, correlations don't equal causation. Oh, so, so this is what we're hoping to do. There's us and there's cohort studies in Brazil, Switzerland, and the United States. And we're actually trying to bring them together. Yeah. So we can answer these questions. And I might have to get you on after that to see what you've done. Yeah, it'd be quite good. I mean, already just off this, I probably shouldn't actually be saying it, but we've shown that people who have hypoxia due to sleep apnea, so that's where their oxygenation reduces below 90%, that they have weaker grip strength and actually less muscle mass. When we control for muscle mass, in terms of the grip strength, and we control for inflammation, testosterone. People who have sleep apnea and who desaturate a lot have reduced muscle mass, which in itself has quite big implications for frailty.
Oh shit!
And just general quality of life.
Yeah. And you were talking, it even goes down to bone density and I guess sleep is one of those things that affects everything.
It does.
And like you were talking about before, with you've got your mental health, your sort of physical health, your fitness, health, diet, sleep. That those all affect each other.
Yeah.
Like, people might say I've got perfect diet, physical health, whatever, but bad sleep. You might even go, well, you couldn't have good sleep if your diet's shit.
Exactly.
But you also couldn't have a good diet if your sleep is shit.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fairly common knowledge. If you have a shit night's sleep, you will
hungry
tend to overeat the next day to sort of outweigh the energy. Because at the end of the day, humans, we still think that we are a hunting animal. We still think we're going to have to fucking fight something.
Yeah, go on.
That we we need this energy, we need to eat to get this energy.
Yeah.
Because we had a shit night's sleep.
Yeah.
And do you see that a lot, that weight gain or loss?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. And is it more on the gain side?
Gain side, definitely. You tend to get weight loss only extreme sleep deprivation. So,
maybe that's what I need a bit of. I've always said I want to be the biggest loser trainer. And, and just put everyone on ice. So you'd have like Michelle.
Probably shouldn't tell me that one.
You'd have Michelle Bridges, like the Commando, all those dudes, they'd have all these guys come on, like, we're gonna get you fit through the treadmill and whatever. I'll be like, righto, straight up, we're doing crystal meth. Like, you guys aren't doing any workouts, but you can get on these drugs. You're gonna win the comp. Like, you're probably gonna die at 30, but you're gonna win the fucking competition, and I reckon it would work.
Sadly, it probably would. I think they've already shown that.
Damn it! So I wouldn't be any groundbreaking information.
No.
Damn. I thought this was going to be my big break. Forget the Willy Show or PT.
Get the So
a terrible thing. Are there any, before we sort of sign off from the official and ask some people in the chat if they've got anything? Is there anything else you want to touch on as far as you can definitely tell you're fucking very passionate on what you're. But I love it. It's like I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I think you've done pretty. I don't know how long we've been going, but I think we've done a pretty good job. About an hour and a bit, I think.
That's pretty good, actually.
What does it say? An hour 3:02 at the moment.
Oh, what's called?
No, are we in trouble? Stop talking about who we're getting 2 beds.
We've already got them. The cat sleeps on. Well, I'm trying to make the cat sleep on.
Bloody cat sleeps on. Yeah, sleeping with animals is a pain in the ass. So I know we've covered a lot. If anyone has any questions, we've sort of answered a lot of questions that we've been going, actually. A lot of the stuff I was actually asking you was straight off this. I mean, if anyone has anything, we'll give another 5 or so minutes for them to.
I was going to say, I was rude. Can I go to the bathroom?
Oh, bro, absolutely. Oh, mate.
Those 3 beers have gone through me.
Yeah, go. You're more than happy to go as you're going. Oh, jump in. We're in no rush. Hanging out at the moment. I feel a bit bad on it, actually. What? Oh, this interrupts the flow? No, never. If anything, it actually almost helps me out with a bit of a break. So when I'm editing this, I'm actually know where we fucking stop and start. Yeah, because the one I did the other night with the fella talking about Afghan or whatever, combat engineer, I was like, fuck, where did we actually start this? I'm listening to like hours and hours, like, oh shit, like, where are we? But that's just how that goes. But I posted him, like, we're just pissing, fucking leave us alone. So one of the boys, Hugo, actually asked about the power naps. And I think we sort of learnt in this that they are beneficial as long as they're under
20 minutes.
20 minutes,
so no more than 20 minutes.
What is that's what they suggest, because I'm hoping that government. Oh, excuse me, all the beer coming up. Actually consulted someone like yourself before they made the ads and whatever, because I think they push 15 minutes.
15 minutes is probably the ideal time. 20 minutes is when you're starting to edge towards that stage 2 going into proper sleep. So I'd even go as little as 10 minutes.
Yeah, and make sure you set an alarm.
Yeah, set an alarm.
Put your seat back, set an alarm.
Or lie down. Actually, I mean, that's probably better off if you could lie down, even if it's on the grass.
Yeah.
So I would probably avoid, because you might, and this almost gets back to what we're talking about with the bedroom, is that if you sort of get used to having a quick power nap in a seat, you may possibly do it in a car.
Yeah, you build that relation, eh?
So try and lie down.
Yeah. Actually, and this is a question from myself. What's your view on changing alarms to wake up to? Because I know I have to do that. Because if I have an alarm for however long and I wake up fairly early and I feel shit when I wake up, I almost build a relation that when I hear that noise, I feel shit. So I hear it and I feel shit.
Pavlov's dogs, I think it's called.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, Pavlov's dogs is when he rang a bell and would give the dog some food.
Okay, yeah.
And then he got to the stage where all he'd have to do was ring the bell, and the dogs would salivate because they associated the bell with food.
Yeah.
So yes, that is a very legitimate psychological phenomenon, and there's nothing wrong with changing your alarms.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know whether you develop sort of this love-hate relationship with the alarm, but
Hate.
well, yeah. But look, if you need to change your alarm,
I know heaps of people never put your favourite song as your alarm because
No,
you
that's
fucking
true,
hate it in a week. And another guy asked the drug Prazosin.
Yeah. I've heard of it,
You're asking about helping people with PTSD sleep through the night.
Okay. Look, if it's been prescribed to you for PTSD, I'm not gonna say anything.
Yep, that's fair.
Because that's obviously there's a lot more going on than just sort of simply not being able to get to sleep.
Yeah.
So certainly, I mean, that's again for the person who asked about Zopiclone. If that has been given to you because of PTSD, then and certainly ignore anything I've said about it.
Yeah.
PTSD does is produce its own separate beast that. I mean, I used to be based at the Repat Hospital, and so we had the Ward 17 nearby, and so we certainly had PTSD patients coming through, and it's sadly is difficult to treat. But when the one thing I will say, particularly in terms of sleep, is just sort of again go easy on yourself. If you have a bad night's sleep, don't go hard on yourself. And also be frank and open about it. I mean, I guess this goes for everyone. If you even just keeping just a sleep diary, just sort of tracking how your sleep quality was, allows you to then, if you sort of realise that there's maybe a series of nights where you didn't have the best night's sleep, you can then possibly look back and see if there's any triggers for it.
Yeah.
And it goes for PTSD as well.
For sure.
So, I mean, with PTSD, as I said, I know there's a lot of nightmares that occur with it, and
it's a really weird illness because it's not like one set of.
No, yeah,
it's not like breaking a leg, bro. Look, this is broken. It's so individualized.
Yeah, exactly.
And
the triggers for it as well. Is very.
And I think a lot of guys with PTSD, especially sort of the forms that we see a lot, might actually be people scared of going to sleep. Because they know that they wake up in a nightmare, or they know they may relive a memory that's happened to them, and they're fearful of going to sleep because once I go to sleep, I relive that incident or whatever. Yeah.
I guess my sort of advice is firstly talk frankly with the psychiatrist about it.
Oh, for sure.
And look, even a sleep physician, talk frankly with them about that. And I guess create an environment where, because I mean, sleep is incredibly important for your health. Even though the dreams.
I'm going to leave your chat. I'm going to piss too. You talk about anything you want.
All right, I might
come back and just beatbox.
Shift the computer around so I can see any questions, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think there's much at the end. Like the last one was just chatting about the sleep and PTSD.
Yeah. Okay. So look, create yourself an environment that. If you do have a nightmare, you know that you're not going to injure yourself or injure sort of anyone else. Sadly, there was an incident back at the Repat many years ago, sort of before I arrived, where there was a patient from Ward 17 who came and they were told if you have to go into the room, and often we have to with sleep studies, we've got to go into the room to fix up a lead or something's fallen off. And they were told not to go into the room, but the sleep tech, being tired at 3 a.m. in the morning, went into the room and sadly the sleep patient, the patient with PTSD, sort of freaked out and did actually physically assault the sleep tech, which was a very sad incident because, I mean, you know, it was certainly no one's fault. And so I guess that's where I'm trying to stress that create an environment where you know you're not going to harm yourself or harm anyone else. Right. Is a warm cup of milk before bed sleep myth or a fact? Funny you mentioned that. Oops. What
have we done?
I've heard, a warm cup of milk and a banana. It does stimulate, I think it's tryptophan, which is it's an important sort of, I think it's true. I'm just going to actually Google this now.
Yeah, go for it.
And I remember this is actually back in my sports science days. Tryptophan helps, it helps you go to sleep. So yes, I would say, here we go, there's a Huffington Post. But no, I think it was. I think that was sort of the thing. It was a little basic little remedy to help you get to sleep.
Yeah.
Help stimulate all those sort of other chemicals aside from melatonin that it allows you to. It's not going to be the be all and end all. You're not going to get, you know, you're not going to overcome every sleep problem in the world.
Yeah, you're a shit
but,
sleeper,
you know, it's certainly nothing wrong with it.
And then one of the guys asks tips for people who set like 5 alarms each morning.
Yeah.
And mentions nurse and a shift worker.
Yeah, set 5 alarms. There's really not much else you can do, unfortunately.
You got to get up.
As I said, I know the Appleton Institute here in Adelaide, but I think of Monash University as well. They've done a lot of research into shift work and in particular sleeping through alarms, and they've shown that they've shown that basically sleep quality and people sleep worse when they have to respond to an alarm because they are so afraid of sleeping through an alarm.
Yeah.
So, paradoxically enough, setting about 5 alarms, if that means you are actually going to wake up on time, then maybe set 5 alarms.
Yeah.
And if you know that those 5 alarms
you'll get up.
will get you up, then maybe that in a way eases you and allows you to sleep more soundly than having just the one alarm. Because I've slept through an alarm.
Oh, fuck yeah, I have, yeah.
I was in Montreal and nearly missed a flight.
Shit. Have you ever had one incorporate in your dream?
Not an alarm.
I have,
but we were at Renmark. Wife and I were in Renmark for a wedding, and we were on a houseboat. First time we've been on a houseboat.
Yeah.
Thoroughly loved it, but the rocking and the sound of the water hitting us was getting to us.
Oh, yeah.
And so my wife turned on SBS Pop Asia 307 on the television.
Yeah. You know you're on a rage when that's on.
It's a guilty pleasure of ours. But I remember, you know, the music in the background was incorporated into a dream.
Yeah.
And then I sort of came to, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I turned it off because it was a very windy sort of night. So, but yeah, I mean, that can happen.
Yeah. And I know the guys asking this. Will putting someone's hand in warm water really make them piss themselves?
I can assure you there's been no scientific evidence, but from past experience, no.
No,
I have tried it.
Damn it!
Have tried it.
I think Mythbusters did it too, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think they did. I reckon but it didn't work. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it works.
No, from what I've seen, it doesn't either, which is a pity because it'd be hilarious.
But no, we have done the whole trying to stick things in people's mouths when they're asleep.
Yeah.
When I was certainly in high school, that was quite fun to do.
Yeah,
but
everyone did, didn't they? What if our guy, and you might not be able to actually answer on any of this, asked about medicinal marijuana helping with sleep, but I guess we sort of went over before that. Some of the studies have shown it actually does affect getting into that fourth stage, REM.
Yeah. I certainly know from friends who have used marijuana, they said that they reckon they actually had a great night's sleep on marijuana, and then coming off marijuana, they were having terrible sleep.
Yeah.
In terms of any proper scientific evidence as whether or not marijuana benefits or is impairs sleep, I don't know of any study.
Yeah.
As I said, because of its increasing legality status in the United States, it probably will come out soon. The one thing I actually noticed, it was an interesting article, is that they're in Colorado, which was sort of one of the original states that legalized marijuana. And I guess that's the difference. I mean, medicinal marijuana implies that possibly this person's using it. They may have a medical condition that does, maybe cancer or something. So that in itself introduces an entirely different sort of confounders.
Yeah, that's changed everything.
But an interesting study, it was on either BBC or CNN, showing that really chronic marijuana usage leads to sort of uncontrolled vomiting.
Okay.
And they've shown there's been like this 10-fold spike in people presenting to emergency departments with this uncontrolled vomiting due to marijuana.
Jesus. Yeah.
So I'm certainly, and I've heard very good things about medicinal marijuana, but but this is where I'd sort of want this evidence to do the effect of complete legalization.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
So I've heard particularly say with cancer patients that medicinal marijuana is very good, and this is actually getting completely off sleep. It's very good with not only overcoming nausea, but it also helps you eat because you get the munchies.
Yeah.
Which is quite an important thing, particularly with chemotherapy. Is
See,
just
that's
being able
more
to eat.
where I see medicinal marijuana coming into. So you get these people, and I'll happily go on camera and say, marijuana does not cure fucking cancer.
No, exactly.
People say that it does. If it did, and there was any evidence, everyone's cancer would fucking have it. Trust me, would know it. The way I see it is it more allows the reason it's getting such good results is it allows you to do more chemotherapy or more of the drug. So there was a point in chemo I was that fucking sick. I couldn't take the drugs and I couldn't eat. I couldn't do shit. Now I've never had medicinal marijuana, but I think where the studies are showing really good results isn't the marijuana. It's they're taking this, but it's allowing this certain individual to eat, to sleep, to deal with the nausea. So then they can actually do, instead of 3 months of chemo, they can do 6 months of chemo. So it's,
and the other thing,
I think it's almost a secondary drug.
I heard that particularly with chemo, I mean, the more body mass you have, the better it is for you. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah.
And so that's the thing with medicinal marijuana as well under chemo, is that just being able to eat means that you can sort of keep that mass up.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that has something to do with it. Yeah.
And so, I mean, look, I will go on camera and I will say, oh, maybe I should run that. Medicinal marijuana, so proper marijuana. And look, actually, they're talking about ketamine for depression treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, ketamine by itself is quite a dangerous drug, but if indeed ketamine is shown to improve depression, then I would be all for that being available as a medication. In fact, a friend sent through the MDMA or ecstasy is actually very good for PTSD.
Okay.
And again, if the evidence is very clear, a randomized controlled trial shows that taking MDMA improves symptoms of PTSD, then I would be more than happy to have MDMA available as a medicinal purpose.
Yes. I think most people would be, because medicinal purpose means it's prescribed, it's controlled, it's taken for the individual, everything. It's not taking a fucking pinger at a nightclub.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm the same for all those drugs. And you look at the countries that have done things like that, and it shows there's no bad real side effect because it is controlled. Yeah. We have very strong drugs that are controlled that you can take. Like endone is a fucking strong drug.
Yeah,
you can 100% OD on that shit. But
it's controlled.
But it's controlled. That's why I know there are issues with prescription medication and people overdosing, more so in America, I think, than Australia, and that's what I've sort of heard anyway.
No, that is.
But at the end of the day, if someone's taking it for the right reason, if you're taking ecstasy for PTSD, and it's legit, you're not going to fuck around with it.
No, exactly.
These people are serious. And I think you, me, and a lot of other really rational people would be like, for a proper fucking reason, of course it should be available.
Yeah.
And I'm the same with, your CBD, your THC, everything for cancers.
Yeah.
That, yes, it should be available for people if they need it to.
No.
Probably. So I'll go with the last. The last question we'll go through is the importance of a sleep routine, as far as getting up the same time in the morning or going to bed at the same time at night.
Yeah.
Is it more important to get up at the same time every morning? Would you say?
It's probably more important to go to sleep at roughly the same time every night.
Okay.
Just because it's with your circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
And you can shift your circadian rhythms if you muck around with it. And I know this is probably very cold comfort for shift workers, but mucking around with your circadian rhythm, can create problems. In terms of the morning, generally speaking, you actually tend to wake up at the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
I certainly know if I've gone to sleep at 2 a.m. or if I go to sleep at 10 a.m., I'm usually up no later than 7.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you can't. And there are sleep-ins, and I think that's the thing. If you suddenly found yourself you've slept until about 9 a.m., 10 a.m., then that would imply that you've not had very good sleep, and that's certainly not a bad thing having a sleep-in.
Yeah.
But that should be a warning sign that something's not quite right with your sleep. And I certainly know on weekends that's obviously a very common thing to experience, having
people working hard all week and then jump in.
And then they just and the concept of catch up sleep is actually very legitimate. That people will almost try and catch up on.
And is that a like you said, that is a legitimate thing?
They have shown that, yes.
Yeah.
Particularly in women.
Okay.
Actually, surprisingly. Maybe clearly women just work harder than us. So
yeah.
No.
Actually, we'll take this as the last one because I think it is fairly relevant. How detrimental do you think to your health shift work is? I know that's very open ended because you could do shift 3 nights on, 3 nights off. Whatever,
I am very certain that unfortunately shift work is now classed as a carcinogen. That's how detrimental it is to our health.
Carcinogen is in cancer.
Cancer causing.
Shit.
That's sort of the problem with shift work.
Yeah.
Which again is probably very cold comfort to the person who has asked that.
Yeah,
and
very.
I think the sad reality, and what's so sad about it, is that the people who do shift work is usually the ones who are the most beneficial to society. They're the nurses at the police.
Yeah,
fireys. I think fireys get to sleep. They're lucky.
Yeah, fireys is a weird one because they'll either not sleep or they will. It's like.
But I mean, even like ambulance drivers and stuff, and so it's sort of a bit sad that those who are most beneficial to society are the ones that are sort of affected by this shift work.
So it's classed as a carcinogen.
Yeah, I have heard that from a biochemist.
Why is that?
Just because the effect that the sleep deprivation has on the body, and so it's something I didn't actually really get into, and that in itself is an entirely different conversation. But I mean, you've got increases in systemic inflammation in the body. You got sympathetic nervous system activation, so that's your stress. But they've shown that sleep deprivation, you just feel depressed. They've literally taken depression and anxiety scales, and you just feel depressed and anxious after sleep deprivation. And so, it is, sadly, it is actually very detrimental. And they've shown, as you said, and it is correct, that your diet goes. I mean, I've certainly done overnights, and just the crap you eat. Yeah. You just like crave McDonald's, you crave chocolate, that fruit salad you bought, just it almost looks disgusting. It almost looks... vomit inducing, and like the bloody vending machine looks enticing, and that in itself creates problems. They've shown University of South Australia are doing studies looking at, and they've shown that eating when you're meant to be sleeping actually screws up your blood glucose control. And so there are actually huge problems with shift work. When you're younger, you tend to be able to deal with those problems a bit better. your body can recover, but I certainly know as you get older, it becomes very problematic.
Yeah.
So my apologies to that person
Yeah.
who asked that.
Yeah, no, but I guess it's all information that that information's out there that might might make them rethink their how they employ.
I mean, I guess I didn't pass this by. A slight plug. There's a group called the Sleep Health Foundation.
Yep.
And so if people do have genuine questions, they need like a quick fact sheet. The Sleep Health Foundation is a very good source to go to, and they will cover stuff like shift work, jet lag, and then even sleep apnea, all these different types of disease. I'm not personally involved with the Sleep Health Foundation. I have colleagues that are, but I mean, they are good. If there is anyone out there who is concerned about their sleep, they are the good first sort of stop to just read up and then to provide potential advice. And then ultimately, if you are really worried, particularly about a specific condition, go talk to your GP.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's because we'll finish it up there, but I think that is the big message. Is if you're concerned. And it's like with every health thing.
It's
speak to a GP, speak to and he will refer you to a sleep doctor or wherever. They're professionals. I think that's sort of the big take home thing. So if you're happy to end it there, I think that's
great.
I think that's about us. So we're bang on 2 hours, and that's pretty good. So thanks again, man. I really appreciate you.